Hi everyone. We are going to start in about 1 minute here, so we'll just let everybody start to join and then we will get started. Thank you. All right, everyone. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jenna Farber, and I work for Emerging Destinations. We represent cool companies and cool places. Today, we are being joined by Nicola Balram of the GTA, so that is the Guyana Tourism Authority. Emerging Destinations represents the GTA in North America, so that's how we all tie in. Before I get to give you a bit more of an introduction to our topic today, I'm going to take a moment to introduce our portfolio to you. So this is our emerging destinations portfolio. Since we are talking about Guyana today, which is in South America, I'm only going to introduce our South American portfolio to you. However, if you do have any questions for any of the clients that you see there on our screen, please feel free to reach out to me. So my email address is at the bottom there. So if you do have any questions about any of them, if you want to receive some digital brochures or set up a private training for you and your team, please feel free to reach out to me about that. So again, today we are talking, of course, about Guyana. In South America, we also represent Cruzandino, who is in Patagonia. We have Jungle Experiences, who do the Amazon River cruising in Peru. Grand Hotels Lux, who have properties in Uruguay and Argentina. Las Torres Patagonia, lastly, also operating in Patagonia as well, in the Cerro del Paine National Park in Chile. And then moving up a little bit, we have Terra Nova in Central America, who do Costa Rica travel design. So if you do have any questions about any of those clients that you do see on the screen there, please feel free to reach out to me. Also, know that most of you are pretty familiar with our webinar platform now, but if you do have any questions or comments, or you can type those through to us on the GoToWebinar control panel. So we would love for you to participate, ask any questions. I know right now there's lots of new updates that we have for you in regards to Guyana and travel to Guyana. So that's what Nicola is going to be talking about today. She's going to tell you a little bit about the process that they have been involved in getting all of their different hotels, resorts, partners approved for travel and everything else that is going on. So without further ado, Nicola, I'll let you introduce the rest of the topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna, and welcome everyone. My name is Nicola Balram, and I'm the Senior Officer of Marketing here at the Guyana Tourism Authority. You can get me at nicola@guyanatourism.com if you have any questions for me directly after the webinar, or just wanted to say hi or hello as well. Today, like Jenna mentioned, we're gonna go through some of the basic facts about Guyana if you don't already know about the country, as well as some updates for our international travelers, updates on getting to Guyana, updates on the product itself and places that are open, and what we have been doing at the Guyana Tourism Authority with our local sector here. So Guyana is a rare kind of place, one where you can find nature's beating heart, and nothing shows this better than one of our highest attractions, which is Kaieteur Falls. This falls is 741 feet off of the ground, and it's the largest single drop waterfalls in the world and one of the most powerful waterfalls in the world. And you can definitely see it by that sheer volume of water. One of the most amazing things about this waterfall is, unlike other popular ones such as Niagara or Victoria Falls, when you visit Kaieteur, it's just going to be you and your small group, which is about 6 to maybe 10 persons, and you can have that falls all to yourself. It's just you and nature, no reels, and one of the best experiences I've heard from some local travel operators here is actually staying overnight at the falls and waking up in the morning and having your coffee with that view. That's definitely one that I want to have on my bucket list, and I hope you guys do as well. So for those of you that may not know, Guyana is a small country in South America, just about the size of Idaho and located just below the Caribbean Sea. It is sandwiched between Venezuela, Suriname, and Brazil, and is the only country in South America where English is the official language. To get to Guyana from some of our key markets, which is in the US, Canada, UK, and Germany, it takes about 5 hours from Miami, 6 hours from New York, 8 hours from Toronto, about 18 to 19 from the UK, and about the same from Germany. You can also connect to about 14 destinations in the US through Copa Airlines, which transits through Panama City. And that takes just about 8 to 9 hours because you do have to take 2 flights. Some of the airlines that are currently serving Guyana, I know 2020 did put a bit of a halt on it, but we're lucky to end off 2020 in a good note and keep these airlines for 2021. So we do have Eastern Airlines, JetBlue, American Airlines, Caribbean Airlines, Trans-Guyana Airways, which is a domestic company that also went international in 2020. Copa Airlines, Suriname Airways, and you can get direct connections with Virgin Atlantic or British Airways to the UK if you fly through Barbados. Currently with our COVID flights, JetBlue and Eastern Airlines are doing direct flights from JFK, New York. American Airlines is doing a direct flight from Miami, Florida. Caribbean Airlines is flying from Miami, Toronto, Trinidad, and Barbados. And Copa Airlines connects through Panama and connects to about 14 destinations in the North American region. If you're coming from the West Coast, it's usually the better option to get to Guyana. So that is definitely one of the great ways you can travel here. So when you hear about Guyana and want to know about the tourism product, what really is the tourism product? As a local, it's a lot in that one experience, but as someone now looking in or learning about the destination, we try to have it highlighted in 5 different elements. And these elements are just specific to the types of experiences you will have here, but what is really special about the country is that no matter what experience, activity, or tour you go on, you're going to touch at least 2 to 3 of each of these, what we call the pillars of tourism. So Guyana is blessed with a lot of nature and wildlife experiences. It's a country filled with rainforest, tropical pristine rainforest, as well as mountains and savanna grasslands. We are an adventure destination as well. You can do horseback riding, kayaking, mountain climbing, wildlife spotting, bird watching, which does cross over into our nature and wildlife pillar. You can also learn a lot about our history and culture, how Guyana was first ruled by the British and got independence in 1966, how 3 different ethnic races or cultures came to Guyana and now form this melting pot of beautiful diversity that we have here. The Dutch forts, when we were, just before we were independent, how the Dutch and the British fought over the initial country, as well as our indigenous community-led and owned tourism product, which is one of our biggest and best packages here in Guyana. For this, and you'll learn a lot more later down in the webinar, this is when indigenous communities first saw that a lot of their income was being made by persons having to leave their villages. But when they first learned about community-led and owned tourism, which is where they can invite a traveler in to learn their way of life and stay with them for a period of time, they found that this brought income back into the communities. It brought a sense of empowerment into the villages, and it also helped them in their overall goal, which is to protect and preserve the rainforest and the wildlife that they call home. This ties nicely into our conservation and save pillar. So conservation tourism focuses on a lot of the activities that we have that is tied to our nature and wildlife product. We do have a caiman tagging and caiman preservation experience. We do have a lot of projects with communities and with donor agencies that also look to preserve species such as the giant anteater, the arapaima, the red siskin, and also Guyana is a big destination for safe travelers. These are scientific, academic, volunteer, and educational travelers that typically tend to travel on the more off-peak seasons, but they do have a great experience and they do help us to learn more about our country and more about how we can protect what's already here. Our last pillar, and by definitely not the smallest, is birding. So while it is nestled under nature and wildlife, Guyana is the destination that has 820 species of birds, even more. And a lot of travelers that we get here are also birders as well. They get to see some of the star species in Guyana, which is just endemic to the Guyana Shield, which is Guyana and some of our neighbors. And some of the species you won't find anywhere in the world or might not as easily spot anywhere else in the world. So just tying it back to what it is right now in country, our local COVID-19 updates. As of yesterday, we have had 7,015 confirmed cases and 65 cases just within that one day were new cases. So far, we've had 170 deaths, but we are practicing a lot in country to remain as safe as possible. Currently, there is a national curfew, and this is between 10:30 p.m. to 4 a.m. Essential businesses are just allowed to be open from 5 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. Hotels, lodges, tour operators have to be given a conditional approval to reopen for safe travel by the GTA, just because tourism is seen as a very high contact industry. So we want to ensure that when we give that go ahead and welcome travelers in, we do not have any community spread, or we have the lowest risk possible. In public spaces, you are asked to social distance and wear your face mask. Restaurants are now allowed to be open from 5 a.m. to 9:30 for outdoor dining, takeout, drive-through, and delivery services with all COVID-19 protocols observed. And restaurants, as of January 13th, restaurants can also now be open for indoor dining at 40% capacity if they are COVID-19 inspected and given that approval to reopen by our team here at the Guyana Tourism Authority. When you are traveling to Guyana, you do have about a 7-step process. So you first have to book your ticket with your airline of choice. We do require a negative PCR test to be taken at least within 7 days of travel. If you take your test and it's negative within 72 hours of travel, that's 3 days, you do not have to take a second test upon arrival. However, if you do arrive in Guyana with a test that was done between 4 to 7 days, you will be asked to retest here at the Guyana International Airport. Passengers will be asked to bear the cost of this test, and tests can be done on ground here. It can be paid in US, in Guyana dollars, or they do have a credit system as well. You also must complete the passenger location form at least 24 hours before travel, and all of these documents you do have to present along with your negative PCR test to the airline representative upon checking, boarding, and when you do arrive in Guyana. And the passenger locator form and any more information you can find on guyanatravel.gy. This is actually a site that was done by our Guyana Civil Aviation Organization for our main ports of entries through air into Guyana. So now that we've gotten all the COVID stuff out of the way, I wanted to help you guys rediscover Guyana. I know travel has been something that was put on slight of a pause in 2020. Hopefully we will get back to a little bit more travel in 2021. But until then, I just like to raise some of our biggest areas and some of the places that we love travelers and visitors to remember and want to experience in the safest way possible. So we're actually going to start our trip in Georgetown, Guyana, which is the capital city of the country. Here you're going to meet the biggest melting pot of all our different ethnic groups, from African, East Indian, indigenous peoples, Chinese, Portuguese, Europeans, and we do have a lot of mixed people in Guyana, which is 2 or 3 different types of ethnic races that came together to make one beautiful person. And in Guyana, you're gonna learn a lot of what the locals do, a lot of our traditions here, and see a lot of the historical architecture. Georgetown is slightly different than the rest of the country. Anywhere else on the coast is slightly different than the rest of the country. While we are found in South America, we do have a very unique and distinctive Caribbean feel, especially in Georgetown, and that is due to our history of being a nation that was once ruled by the British. So like in this picture, you'll be able to experience some of that colonial architecture that was established pre-independence and that we still remain intact up to today. This image on the left is St. George's Cathedral. It is the tallest freestanding wooden building in the world, and it's made completely out of wood. It was actually recently refurbished this year, so anyone that comes with for 2021 will be lucky enough to see a very, very immaculate building. On the right, this is the seawall. This is a wall that was built by the Dutch to help, because Guyana is under sea level, it's to help prevent flooding in the city and along the coast. And this actually runs from the top of the country all the way down along that coastline. In Georgetown, it's used as a popular spot for running, jogging, for hangouts in the evenings when there was no COVID, and also just getting together with your family or having a good afternoon out as well. Although we are a city or a town area, we do have a lot of greenery everywhere you look. So you can visit the National Zoo, the National Park, and start your nature adventure there with some areas and instances of green. This is the Promenade Gardens, or the promenade in the National Zoo here in Guyana, where a lot of locals go to take out portraits and pictures, have picnics, or even just go to the local zoo here. Any trip to any country is not complete without food, and Georgetown is the perfect place to get the traditional Guyanese cuisine. And this is a mix of Caribbean dishes that have that Guyanese and South American influence. One of our biggest things that we love here in Guyana is hot pepper or hot sauce. No meal is actually complete without it. And Guyana has a lot of local fresh fruits, vegetables, and fishes just out from the sea because we are so close to the coast. One of the best experiences and best tour you can have here is actually a market tour by this same guy here called Delvin Adams from the Backyard Cafe. Delvin started out the Backyard Cafe when he was actually in the US for quite some time, and then he came back to see what he can do in his home country. And he convinced his mom to turn the backyard of their house into a little cafe and eatery. And he wanted to showcase the best that Guyana has to offer, but in the most unique way possible. So he developed a tour along with the GTA and one of our local DMCs here that would actually carry travelers through the local market. You get to taste all the fruits and vegetables you like, and whatever you buy in that market, he then carries back to the Backyard Cafe and prepares that for you to have for your lunch or dinner. It usually is an amazing experience and definitely a good way to get that introduction into Guyanese cuisine. Now, before we step into the rainforest and into the other types of accommodation, Georgetown is a place that will have various types of accommodation that you can enjoy. We do have a mix of the colonial style hotels, boutique hotels, and also the more luxurious five-star hotels such as the Marriott, or the semi-luxurious boutique hotels such as Pegasus Hotel with a poolside. Some of our favorite accommodations right now that you can visit are Cara Lodge, Herdmanston Lodge, and Pegasus Hotel. But we also do have a Marriott. There is also Grand Coastal Hotel, as well as Status International Hotel, and a lot of others in that city area. We are looking in the next years to welcome a Hilton and a possible Hyatt and a Radisson to Guyana. So that will also add to some of the great accommodations that you can also have here on the coast. Now we get a little bit more into some of our tourism pillars and what a lot of persons come to Guyana for: the nature, culture, history, and wildlife experiences. From Georgetown, one of your first stop will be the Essequibo region. The Essequibo region is just about an hour and a half to 2 hours by road and then another hour by boat along the longest river in Guyana, which is also the third longest in South America. And this is called the Essequibo River. For a tourism circuit, we usually just call it the Essequibo Circuit. Here you can see a lot of the Dutch remains that we have, including Fort Zeelandia and the Court of Policy. And this was built by the Dutch pre-independence when they were now fighting the British over the right to Guyana, which was then British Guyana when the British won. In the Essequibo region, you'll be greeted by a lot of nature-style island resorts. While we are not an island destination, we do still have a lot of riverine resorts and those that take that island style vibe. These businesses here are now fall under our safe for travel or safe to reopen policy at the GTA. So that means that they have been inspected and they have been outfitted and prepared to welcome travelers in with special hygiene and sanitation policies in relation to COVID. So these include Baganara Island Resort, where you can have a relaxing experience, just learning a bit more about the country, learning how to just have a nice island afternoon. You can play pools and table tennis under their main area, and you can also go kayaking, swimming around that area as well. There's Huaracaba River Resort, which gives you a slightly bit more rustic style than Baganara Island Resort, but it is very comfortable accommodation, and you can do things like jet skiing. You can also visit around the area, that you can go on a nature walk as well. One of the highlights for a lot of people is actually Sloth Island Resort. That is at the top right-hand corner. And it does have a very similar feel to all these other nature resorts. They are more island style, very open, but it also has one of the biggest draws for this area is it is an island that is well known for its sloths. So sloths are what many people would say one of the slower animals in the world, but they are also one of the cutest animals in the world. And you do have a very high chance of seeing them on Sloth Island. That was actually the reason they ended up naming the resort after that. And they also do have a mini canopy walkway that you can walk through. It's just about a 10-minute walk that you can see the rainforest more in person here. One of our other riverine nature resorts, it's actually not on the Essequibo area, but it's very close to Georgetown in the Damarara River, which is our smallest river. This is just about an hour's drive away from the city. It's Arrow Point Nature Resort. This resort offers things like kayaking, swimming. You can do a bike trail, a nature trail as well, and you can learn about the indigenous culture that's actually not that far off from this resort in a village called Santa Arata. Here you can learn about craft making and also buy some of the local craft that their persons would have done. Now I want to highlight some of the two circuits that are one of the biggest draws for a lot of travelers to come to Guyana. And this is the North Rupununi and the Central and South Rupununi areas. The North Rupununi is classified primarily by our indigenous community led and owned tourism products, which is focused a lot around rainforest, nature, and wildlife. This shot is the Canopy Walkway, which is found in the Iwakrama Forest, but located at Atta Lodge. This is a bridge that's suspended about 100 meters off the ground, and you can actually walk among the trees and see wildlife and bird life. It's a great place for bird watching, especially early in the mornings and late in the afternoons. And if you have a drone, it takes awesome pictures like this. So throughout the presentation, I will be showing you a lot of the places that have been giving that safe for travel approval from the GTA. So there are places that are ready to welcome travelers, and they're hoping to welcome travelers sooner rather than later as well. The North Rupununi, like I mentioned, is categorized primarily by rainforest and rivers. And here you would find a lot of the type of wildlife that are more endemic to this area, such as the caiman. We do have a black caiman, spectacle caiman, as well as a dwarf caiman. You can see snakes like the anaconda, birds like the harpy eagle. You can see mammals such as the giant river otter, to some extent the giant anteater, and some of the more species that we call the giants of Guyana, and even the very minute species that it's hard to find in other places of the world. Some of the places that are now open for travelers to come is the Rewa Eco Lodge. This is located at the confluence of the Rupununi and the Rewa River. This was actually one of the second lodges to start up community-led and owned tourism. And in addition to going on wildlife spotting and bird watching trips and nature walks in the area, or even learning about the local indigenous life here, one of the special draws of this place is their sport fishing. They're a big sport fishing destination for a lot of travelers that would like to come to Guyana. And they are also the only place in Guyana that is licensed to do catch and release fishing of the arapaima species. And the arapaima is the largest scaled freshwater fish in the world. Going off of fishing, Paraiba Lodge, which is actually owned and operated by a local tour operator, Adventure Guyanas, is known primarily for its fishing experiences. The owner of the lodge and of the company is a big sport fisher by heart, so a lot of the trips that he does are targeted towards persons that do want to have that unique fishing experience. He does work a lot with Rewa Eco so to also ensure that those that want to go catch and release fishing for arapaima species or other species that you might not find at Paraiba Lodge, you can have that full experience when in Guyana. Ata Rainforest Lodge is one of the lodges that was actually a collaboration between a community, a destination management company here, as well as a conservation company here, which is the Aracrama body that governs the entire area of rainforest, protected rainforest here in Guyana. The biggest draw of Ata Rainforest Lodge is the Aracrama Canopy Walkway, which you earlier saw, and the experiences you can have there, especially bird watching. It's also a great place for wildlife spotting, and many of the jaguar sightings that we've had in Guyana have happened in and around this lodge. I know you might be curious to see what the inside of these lodges look like as well. While they're very basic accommodation, they're also very comfortable accommodation. And most of these accommodations also are very eco-friendly and sustainable because they try to use as much as they can from the environment to give you that full nature feel. So this is actually what a standard room looks like at Ata Lodge. I do not have a picture of the bathroom here, but their bathroom is a semi-outdoor bathroom for both Ata Lodge and Rewa Lodge, where you can actually take a shower and look up at the stars in the night. And that's definitely an experience that I would recommend you have. Aracrama River Lodge, not that far off from Ata Lodge, I think it's only about a half an hour to a 45-minute drive, is actually started out as a research center. So they are the body that governs the Aracrama Rainforest Reserve, which is a patch of protected rainforest in the Guyana rainforested area. At Aracrama River Lodge, you welcome a lot of scientific education and volunteer travelers and a lot of researchers that are looking into the biodiversity species here in Guyana. They also have their own pet caiman. His name is Sankar, and you can see him on the bottom left-hand corner here. But don't be intimidated. He definitely is one of the friendlier ones, I've been told. Just don't tease him in any way, but he's definitely there that you can take and you can stand on the bank and snap a picture of him. Going now, leaving the heart of the rainforest itself and going more down towards the country, you're going to find Karinambu Lodge. Karinambu Lodge is not as specifically a community-led and owned tourism lodge like some of the others. This actually is just outside of the the borders of some of the indigenous communities, but it also started as a conservation hub for giant river otter protection. It was started by a lady named Diane McTurk, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. But during her tenure there, she also transformed the lodge and transformed the program, and knew that it had a greater impact if it was open to tourism experiences. So a lot of travelers will come and learn about her work and even help her in terms of taking these giant river otters that may have been orphaned, or they have lost their way and they need to be somewhat rehabilitated before they are put back into the wild to fend for themselves. So currently her work is being continued through her family and other members of the lodge and nearby communities that get jobs from these tourism experiences. This is what an accommodation would look like at Arakrama Lodge, and also very similar in Karanambu Lodge. Now that we're leaving the North Rupununi, which is predominantly rainforest based, and in the middle of Guyana, we're going to come all the way down to the south to what we call the Central and South Rupununi region of the country. And this is primarily where we have the savanna landscapes. So this image was actually taken just as you're leaving the north and entering into the central and south. You can see that it's where that divide happens between the more forested areas and when you're coming into the more grassland landscapes. But it's going to have just the same amazing experiences. Here are some of our lodges that are now ready to welcome travelers. Our Rockview Lodge. This is located just at the beginning of the Central and South Rupununi from the North Rupununi. And here you can do things like horseback riding. You can have nature mountain treks. These are not forested treks. They're more savanna landscapes. And you'll get the full heat of the Guyanese sun, tropical weather on you. But when you get back to the lodge, you'll be able to have a nice cool shower and talk about some of those amazing life experiences you have. They also do have a pool here, which due to COVID protocols, it's not open at this time. But after this period of time, when things are a bit more calm, that will be open for travelers as well. They do also have a nice mix of the ranch style as well as the treehouse style in architecture. So it's great for any photos, any types of experiences that need photos, and they do have a very good cook here also. This is one of their accommodation. You'll notice that from accommodation to accommodation, the inside looks very similar, and it's very basic but comfortable accommodation. But one of the best things about some of our lodges here in Guyana is that none of them do look the same from the outside, and you do have a lot of different elements and different photo opportunities and different experiences with each one of them as well. The last lodge or ranch on our stop will be Waikin Ranch. So this is more into the central south area. It's located just a 35-minute ride from Latham. So if you are in Guyana for a very short period of time, even if you're on a business trip or on a personal family trip or just for any other purpose, and it's primarily in Georgetown, and you can only visit one of our eco lodges and ranches, Waikin will definitely be the most accessible to you. It is about 35 minutes out of Latham, and there are direct flights from Latham to Georgetown going. Waikin Ranch is a family-owned ranch, family-owned working ranch. And when they started the business, that was one element of it, but they found that a lot of travelers or a lot of persons that stayed there also liked to learn about what their day-to-day is like and what it is like to be on this ranch and have this experience. Horseback riding, cattle rearing, making different types of dishes here that are so different from what is offered in Rupununi or even Georgetown. And this business and some other of the working ranches then started going into the tourism field, where they now offer that as an element also. And the monies that you get from that helps to support the overall ranch and helps them to employ a lot more persons from surrounding communities and giving them that livelihood that they never had as an option before. You can see now the slight difference in the accommodation in the interior because we're now out of the rainforest and deep into the savannas and ranching style. So they have a bit more of an open space. They do have white walls. These are easier to clean with the sand of the savannas as opposed to the more clay brick ones in the Rupununi. And they also give a lot more breeze and keep the place a lot cooler because there's not a lot of trees or as much trees in this particular area of the country compared to the rainforested region. Now that all the ranches are there, it's great to know some of the experiences, but I know as members of the travel trade, you also need to know who you can connect with to make these trips possible. So we also do have some destination management companies and tour operators that have been given that safe approval or safe for travel stamp by the GTA. And the only destination management company in Guyana is Wilderness Explorers. They have been around for quite some time, I think just over 25 years in country. And they have been recently giving that stamp of approval for safe travel in Guyana. They also have, due to the current situation, they have amended some of their booking terms and conditions. So when you are calling or inquiring about a trip, if you're planning a trip with them, no deposit is required to hold a reservation. You get free cancellation or date of change up to 30 days prior to travel. A 30% deposit is required at 30% days prior to travel, and the balance 7 days prior to travel. Full refund or travel credit will be given if the trip has to be canceled due to any circumstance surrounding COVID-19. The tour size will be restricted to COVID-19 safe family and travel pods or specifically designed travel bubbles. While a lot of our businesses were eager to open up because with the pandemic that stopped travel, a lot of their businesses were out of travel and they can support the communities or their staff as much as they used to before. They are also the industry that is very cautious about what is happening here. So they're taking all the precautions of safety, of travel bubbles, to make sure that any trip that comes to Guyana, any traveler that they have to cater to leaves here happy, healthy, and safe, and their teams are also safe. You can also contact Elite Kayaking and Nature Tours or Dagron Tours. Elite Kayaking and Nature Tours does focus a bit more in the Georgetown area, but they also can do expansions if required and if working with a company that necessarily needs one. Dagron Tours offer trips to the Essequibo River region. They do dabble into the North and South Rupununi from time to time, and they also do trips to Kaichor Falls. Wanderlust Adventures Guyana is one of our newer tour operators here in country, and it was great that they also were able to get this safer travel stamp within a year that they actually started and had this pandemic hit them in their within their first year of business. So they offer trips that are tied to a wanderlust adventure. They offer hikes and rainforest treks. Most of them are done not too far out from the Georgetown region, but they can expand depending on what your needs are. And when you do have that conversation with them, they'll be able to guide you as to what they can provide and accommodate as well. For more information, you can visit GuyanaTourism.com. That is the official destination site of Guyana, and it's owned and operated and monitored by the Guyana Tourism Authority. We are the governmental agency responsible for product development and general marketing of the Guyana tourism product. You can also visit tag.co. This is the website link to the Tourism and Hospitality Association of Guyana. It is a private sector membership-based organization for the tourism sector. You can also visit www.visitrupununi.com, which is the regional destination management organization for the Rupununi region of Guyana. For more information on traveling to Guyana, please visit guyanatravel.gy. And for more information on the main airport you might have to travel into, which is the Chetty Jagan International Airport, please visit cgairport-gy.com. And lastly, if you are interested in investment opportunities into the country, you can visit goinvest.gov.gy. This is our on-the-ground team here at the Guyana Tourism Authority, and we are supported by Jenna and her team in the North American markets, as well as Lotus in the UK and Fast Forward Marketing in the German-speaking markets. Our team and their team also helps to provide key information on the destination, coordinating travel-related events, joint advertising and cooperative marketing, support on fam trips, especially if you're looking to offer Guyana in the near or distant future. We know that you might need to come to Guyana to actually see that product to build your trip. We help to negotiate hotel rates and also help to build your relationship with the private sector, who you will be liaising with to offer those trips going forward. I will now actually hand it over to Jenna for any questions that came in during this period of time. And thank you all for just being a part of this very first webinar on Guyana for 2021. I know the end of 2020, a lot of persons were also getting a bit of a webinar fatigue because everything was online for a lot of companies and a lot of places. But I know starting 2021, we do have a fresh start in a lot of respects. So we are hoping to keep things positive on this end and just being as safe as possible of a destination that we can going forward.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Nicola, for keeping us all up to date on everything currently going on in Guyana in the tourism sector. We are at 40 minutes right now, so I just did want to remind everyone that this webinar will be recorded. So if you do have to leave, that's no worries. I will be sending the recording out to everybody next week. Also, we do have quite a few questions in here, so if we don't get to all of them, we will get Nicola to answer them, and those will also be provided to you in our webinar follow-up. Also, keep in mind that our Emerging Destinations website and our Emerging Destinations YouTube channel does have all our previously recorded webinars on them as well. So if you do want to go watch it before I send it out to you, we do upload it almost instantly up onto those two platforms. So Nicola, let me ask you a couple questions here. We'll see how far we can get time permitting today. The first question was, okay, we do have a couple about COVID, so I'll get these out of the way quick. If you are already fully vaccinated, do you still need a negative PCR test to come into Guyana?
Currently you do, just because our policies have not changed given the vaccination updates and policies. So currently you still do need that negative PCR test, but I would advise that you also have, if you have any documentation of when you were vaccinated, to also walk with that as well.
As far as getting a COVID test when leaving Guyana, is that something that you guys have set up for travelers now that as of next week that will be required as well for re-entering the US?
The government of Guyana is working very closely with Eureka Labs. They do have a branch here in Georgetown to get a rapid test. I believe you can get that back within 6 to 8 hours. If it is a PCR test, it does take about 2 to 3 days. So if you are planning if you're planning to travel to Guyana and get back to the US, I would schedule at least 2 to 3 days coming out of whatever area and being in Georgetown to get that test. And you can also do a reverse trip where you may go into the Essequibo or the Rupununi region or do whatever adventurous activities you want. And then you have the Georgetown leg of your trip at the end. So you can get that test and get it back in time for your travel.
Great. So just on that, what is the, well, in your opinion, what is the best number of days to spend in Guyana to see, you know, the majority of the regions, those highlights that you kind of gave to us today?
I think the minimum days you can spend to get the majority of highlights will be about 10 days, not including travel days. And it just takes about half of a day or 2/3 of a day to get to Guyana. But for a full experience with, I guess, some more of the highlights that I didn't get to meet on this presentation and to experience all of these lodges at least once or twice per night, the ideal is usually 2 to 3 weeks.
Great, thank you for that. And last question, so we will wrap it up here just for time's sake. But again, as I mentioned, this will be recorded and we will get Nicola to answer any unanswered questions in the webinar follow-up as well. So Nicola, the last question is about the safe travels that you mentioned. Is this different from the WTTC Safe Travels program?
So it is actually modeled off of the WTTC Safe Travel Program. As the authority as well, we were very cautious in a lot of our businesses. We're also very cautious of COVID. What we found when we looked at the WTTC program was that we could not apply for the entire destination as a whole to get that safe travel. It would be up to each individual business to do a self-assessment of themselves and to put up that recommendation and get that WTTC travel. But as the destination, we wanted to be a bit more, we wanted to ensure that we have visited those places and know that we would vouch for those places, say that they are safe for travel. So we took the WTTC model and also included that with some information from our National Task Force and Ministry of Health to build the criteria these businesses are going through for that safe for travel. So it's very comparable, but it's not the same thing. Some of our next steps on this end will be how we can look to see if maybe the GTA can be that third party sign off for WTTC. So if we sign off on the businesses, they can now safely get that WTTC safer travel stamp.
That's great. Thanks so much for that explanation, Nicola, and thanks as well for your time today, as well as a big thank you to everybody who took the time to join us. I know Nicola just mentioned that you can tell everyone was feeling a little bit of that webinar and online training fatigue, but we do appreciate you taking the time to come learn about Guyana or hear about the updates of traveling. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either Nicola or myself. You will have our information in the webinar follow up as well, but we really do appreciate you being here. So thank you so much, and I'll let you have a quick sign off there as well, Nicola.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.